Hello and welcome back to my channel. Let's wrap up the books I read in August. August happened and August was quite eventful here in Canberra, so we actually went into lockdown for the first time in like a year. So that has been challenging mentally for sure, but it also meant that I've just been able to read a lot. It has been some serious escapism for me and I got a lot of reading done. Once again, it starts on Bookly. I'm not reflecting correctly, but I read 15 books, which I think that's probably like my best reading month like ever. The first thing I read in August was A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is the second book in the From Blood and Ash series. I think I enjoyed this one more than the first one. It did feel long-winded at times. I gave it 3 stars. We kind of get more world building, but also more questions. And like, I don't blame Poppy for all the questions she's asking because I'm like, girl, same. And that ending was crazy. Somehow I still haven't picked up Crown of Gilded Bones even though the ending was crazy, but we'll get to that. Next, I read Ariadne by Jennifer Saint, and this cover is so good. So this was part of the Swell book club. This was their book. I got to it very late, but luckily I just flew through this and I really enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars, which was a bit controversial in our catch-up because majority of people really didn't like this, and like, I get why, but I was vibing with it. So in this we follow Ariadne, and she is the sister of the Minotaur from Greek mythology, and we get her side of the story as well as her sister. This is kind of slow and more like slice of life character development rather than like, wow, look at all the things happen. And the main themes of this is just about how women are overlooked and like have their place and all that, and how women pay the price for men's mistakes a lot. And it just, like, I felt a lot reading this, and I thought the ending was incredible. And I can't wait to read her next one. Next, I read Bunny by Mona Awad. This is on Kindle Unlimited, so I read it. And it was crazy. Like, it was kind of fucked up. I didn't really know it was happening. And I still didn't really know it was happening at the end. Then I started conspiracy theorizing. I was that meme of Charlie from Always Sunny. I'll put it here. And I'm gonna have to make a video dedicated to Bunny because I have all these theories. Oh my god, what if it was a metaphor for this and that would mean that this would mean that? So we follow these girls at a uni, they're in a writing course, and there's like the mean girl clique where they all call each other Bunny. And we have our kind of outcast character, and she kind of gets swept up with these mean girls, but everything is not as it seems and there's some creepy shit going on. Next, I read Finlay Donovan is Killing It by El Cosimano. I got this from the library and it was really fun. I'm really glad I picked this up. This is kind of like a cozy murder mystery rom-com, and I just had such a blast with it. In particular, I thought the first like 100 pages or so were like so fun and fast. It did dip a little bit in the middle for me, but maybe that might have just been my momentum because I read multiple things at once. But this was really fun and ridiculous, and the ending was very good. So I can't wait for the sequel. And if you just kind of want something fun to read that's not going to be too heavy, I'd say this is it. Like, there is death. Children of Virtue and Vengeance by Tomi Adeyemi. So this is a sequel to Children of Blood and Bone. This is like a young adult high fantasy where we're in this world where we're segregated by people who can do magic and people who can't. So people that have like this white hair are our mages. I heard a lot of negative things about this book, and like, I get it because it was okay. It's 2 stars. Young adult fantasy really needs to do something really good for me to be like, wow, because I'm starting to just age out of it. So if it's not doing anything in particular, I'm like, ugh. Like, it was just slow and weird, and the ending was a bit of a cliffhanger. So it's like, I could read the next one. Next, I read Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. I read this for the 48-hour Citadel Readathon with Mel Reads and Peeps. And this was 5 stars, you guys. This was so good. I've read a lot of Colleen Hoover, but I hadn't gotten to this one yet. And I don't know, just something about it was putting me off. I was like, it's one of the older ones. I don't think I'm going to like it as much. And then I read it. And I didn't cry, but I came like very close. I came this close to crying. And I only tabbed it a bit. I wasn't planning on tabbing it, and I did, so I just had like one cute line in particular. I'm gonna read it for you now. My heart forgets to wait and get to know a girl before it starts to claw its way out of my chest to get to her. That's just cheesy as hell, but I'm like, cute. So in this we have a romance between Tate and Miles, and it's kind of like a friends with benefits situation, but then obviously feelings get involved and it gets really complicated. But the whole thing is, like, we know from the get-go something's up with Miles, and he has this past trauma and he can't talk about it because drama. We get alternating timelines of him when he was younger and the present, and the writing style changes with the timelines. So when he's like a teenager, it's like very poetic, lyrical writing, like kind of in verse. And here it's like the center of a page. It all culminates and it's very emotional and it's very beautiful. So like, as per usual, you should look up some trigger warnings if you're sensitive, but just know Colleen Hoover's always going to be intense. Then after that I read Slammed by Colleen Hoover because I was just having a bit of a binge. I wanted to get through as many as I could, which only happened to be 2, but that's okay. And I gave this one 5 stars as well. I was even more cautious about this one because this is her debut novel, and I was like, okay, what if it's not good? What if it's not good? And it was good. There's a romance, there's family drama, there's school drama, and there's poetry. There's lots of slam poetry. Some of the slam poetry is like borderline a little bit cringe, but that's just like up to your taste, I guess. And there is like a trope I'm not necessarily like a fan of, but like I don't think it was done terribly in this book. So I'd still recommend reading it. I have the other 2 books in this little series, and I hope to get to those soon. And I hope that she doesn't like wreck it. I also read a play. I read Happy Days by Samuel Beckett with my pals at the Philip Scale Book Club. Trademark! This was in preparation for the performance, which will be coming up, which is a book based on a play. So we're like, let's read the play for some context, you know? And it's absurd and it didn't really make a lot of sense. So like I really had to dig to try and like figure out like what it meant. I still don't really have a clear answer. I thought it was interesting nonetheless. So I gave it 3 stars. So like I liked it. It wasn't bad. It wasn't really good. It just was. After that I read a graphic novel, which I almost never do. I came across this graphic novel called Sunstone. So I read the first volume because I found it to read for free online. I liked it. I gave it 3 stars. It's a sapphic BDSM romance. And what I like about this is that it didn't, like, it showed it without going too far. I mean, that's always up to someone's interpretation, but it wasn't just like porn, you know. And even in the book, it's like, I'll leave the rest up to your imagination, but this was the vibe. And it kind of went into the characters' pasts and the psychology and the stigma around BDSM and kink. So I thought that was a really good and important conversation to have. I read Vengeful by V. Schwab because I loved Vicious. Unfortunately, I didn't love this one as much. Like, it was still alright. I gave it 3 stars. I enjoyed elements of it, but there are also parts of it that I was like, but why? What does it mean? Where was that going? It didn't feel finished. I think that's because she was leaving it open for another book. So if she writes another one, I'll still read it because I like her writing style and I think this is a really great story. There's kind of like an epilogue which was very cryptic and I don't understand what it means. Some people thinks it means like certain characters are dead or alive, and I'm like, I don't know. Next I read City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. I read this on my e-reader and I really liked it. This was a buddy read for The Citadel. Hashtag Mel Read. I don't know, I think I kind of had higher expectations going into this, so I still enjoyed it. I gave it 4. But there was a lot of like wrapping my head around everything, which happens a lot in fantasy. And I don't know, I just think there could have been a bit of a better balance with info dumping and just being chucked right into the middle of it. And there were just parts of the story where it like glossed over time periods, and that is one of my pet peeves. No, I don't want to have like, oh yeah, a month has passed and these characters have grown really close. And I'm like, well, I'd just rather see that rather than you just tell me and I have to take it at face value. The world is really great. The characters are really interesting. The setup at the end of this book for the rest of the series has me like gagging. So I'm really excited to check out Kingdom of Copper and Empire of Gold. I really hope it wraps up well. Next I read The Performance by Claire Thomas. So this is Australian. It's about theatre. I thought I was gonna love it. Unfortunately, no. I gave it 2 stars. So the thing with this one is that it is character driven, but not only is it character driven, it doesn't make a full point about anything. It just says lots of little comments about lots of things without kind of making a full, this is what I think, or like this is the full scope of that issue or that thing. It was disappointing in that way, but I do have plenty of tabs in there. So even though we didn't get to know these people inside and out, we did get to find out some things that you wouldn't normally know. And I think that's partly what it is. It's like these 3 people in a theatre and their inner thoughts and goings-ons and how they relate to things. So there were a few funny moments, a few sad moments, just really nice, like poignant passages that related to the play or just about life. It wasn't all bad, but like it just wasn't cohesive and powerful enough for me to give it any more than 2 stars. Also, if you're on the bandwagon of I hate normal people because there's no quotation marks, don't read this. Where Dreams Descend by Janella Angeles. And I thought I was really gonna love this. It was average. So I gave this 3 stars. I went into this with pretty high hopes, so I think that's kind of where it went wrong for me. And this was kind of pitched as like, ooh, Greatest Showman, and like, it's so cool. It just scratched the surface really, so in some ways that was good because it made me intrigued and want to read the next one. But even things that felt like it should have been a big event in the book were just kind of over in 5 seconds. And so some of the mysterious, intriguing elements that were introduced like at the very beginning were still unresolved at the end, and then on top of that we had new unsolved things to discover. But I'm a bit frustrated with this book. And like I was marking all this kind of world building stuff that didn't go anywhere. It just gave me a bit more of a taste. Like it's not even in a way where I'm like, oh my god, oh no, the next one. It's like, I'm just like, I'm annoyed. I'm annoyed. And it just didn't feel like complete. But I must say, I was a fan of our main character, Kalia, a lot. Like, she was just like a strong, confident woman, and nobody could tell her that she was wrong or that she couldn't do something. After that, I read The Evolution of Mara Dyer, which is the 2nd book in the Mara Dyer series. And this is just kind of like a YA thriller, unreliable narrator, creepy showtime. And the first book was like fine. Like I liked it. It was interesting, but I wasn't like, wow. But also, this is like a booktube oldie, so I might just be reading it a bit too late in my life. But this one really kind of kicked it to the next level, and things got really crazy and I was on the edge of my seat, so I really enjoyed this one. And then the last book I read in August was Olive by Emma Gannon. This is just like a contemporary feminism book. So I describe it as like a grown-up Sisterhood of the Travelling Pants, where we have this friendship group, but they're in their 30s, and Olive is the only one that doesn't have kids and is not trying to have kids and like doesn't really want kids. And so a lot of like the discussion in this book is about how society kind of looks down on women that don't want to have children. Like it's really difficult to get your tubes tied if you're a young woman, because people keep being like, you'll change your mind, you change your mind. You always have family and friends asking, when are you going to have a baby, when are you going to have a baby? It just got me thinking. I was like, I think I want to have kids one day, but also I'm not sure. It really just depends on your circumstances, your finances, your support network. It's like a really complicated thing. It's just kind of opening the discourse and the space so that everyone can feel valid and important. I really liked it. I gave it 4 stars. I'm a happy camper. Oh, let's look at my stats. So I read 15 books. I read 6,108 pages. 7 adventurous books, 6 emotional, 3 mysterious, and 3 dark. The rest are too small for me to go into. The length of books I read was pretty even. It was 33% for fast, slow, and medium. Page number, I mostly read like mid-range, 60%. Then 13% was under 300 pages, and 27% was 500 plus. I read 7 fantasy, 4 young adult, 4 contemporary, 3 literary, 2 romance, 2 historical, 1 erotica, art, science fiction, play, mystery, horror, and comics. Hot damn. Alright, so I read 108 hours, 5,856 pages, My reading speed in pages was about 53 pages an hour. The most pages I read in a day was 178. I don't know if that's right, because I definitely finished Ugly Love in a day and then started Slammed. So I'm going to check that. Most minutes read in a day is 162. I don't know if that's accurate either, but yes. Fastest paced was Slammed at 78 pages an hour. Slowest was City of Brass at 34 pages an hour. Average number of pages a day was 188. I read 14 books, actually 15, it lies, and added 10 new words. Let me check the stats section that's separate. Oh yeah, so it says here on the 14th of August, I read 504 pages. So that's pretty cool. That's the most there. And the most time on the same day was 8 hours and 13 minutes. I think that was during the 48-hour readathon. That was August. Those were the books I read. Let me know how your reading month went and your thoughts on any of the books I mentioned, and I'll see you next time.